2022 Republican hopefuls settle into the race. More hard evidence of big tech bias is put on display. And New Yorkers get yet another lesson in why not to trust their politicians. That's coming up on The Breakdown. The Senate re-election field seems to be set for 2022 with announcements from the last Republican holdouts, Senators John Thune of South Dakota and Ron Johnson of Wisconsin. They both have said they're running for re-election. 5 Republicans are retiring, but they're all from solid red states. Thune is as well. Now, Democrats think they might be able to win Wisconsin, and they're already attacking Johnson for breaking his promise not to run for a third term. But considering that any alternative would be a Democrat, that might not be a winning message this year. Also, it's kind of hard to swallow that line of attack about someone wanting a third term when we currently have the oldest Senate in U.S. history. And the oldest serving senator, Democrat Dianne Feinstein, is 88 years old, and she's been in office for 30 years. The only Democrat who's announced his retirement is Pat Leahy, and he's 81 years old and has been in office for 47 years. By their own standards, a 2-term senator has barely broken in his chair. 34 of the 100 Senate seats are up for election this year. 20 of those are Republican. Ordinarily, that might be cause for concern. But with Joe Biden on the Democrat side, Republicans shouldn't have that much trouble sweeping the floor with their blue-in-the-face opponents. That said, it's important to note that a major reason that Republican prospects look so hopeful in 2022 and 2024 is not so much because their messaging has been particularly potent, but because the Democrats' messaging has been so very bad. Neither side is connecting with the public en masse particularly well, but Democrats are actively enraging the public right now. That's why Republicans will likely win in 2022. But if Republicans don't do something to connect with the public at large, like cracking down on big tech, for example, another red wave in 2024 will be a lot less certain. On the subject of big tech, Fox News reports that according to Federal Election Commission records, 94% of donations, 94% from the top employees of Google, which, by the way, owns YouTube, all of those go to Democrats, as do 99% of donations from Twitter employees. It's no surprise that both platforms are routinely accused of silencing and censoring conservative voices. When called on it, they deny it, or claim that it was just a mistake, as YouTube just did after reinstating a song critical of Biden's botched Afghanistan withdrawal. Gee, remember when songs criticizing the government were considered classics of the 1960s? When all your mistakes point in one direction, they're clearly intentional mistakes. Of course, YouTube claimed that the video's images might be offensive to some audiences. I'm sure they are. Mostly Biden campaign aides, I would imagine. Still, even with the growing likelihood of a Republican takeover of Congress, many GOP voters are discouraged that Republican Congress members publicly complain about big tech leftist censorship, but they won't change any laws to stop it or make them legally accountable. But there might just be another way to force Silicon Valley to end its biased business practices. Charles Glasser explained on Instapundit how people who have been harmed by big tech censorship might be able to get around their Section 230 immunity and sue. By the way, they should have lost that immunity long ago for their blatant violation of the requirement not to act as editors of content. If Republicans know what's good for them, they'll make really sure that big tech loses 230 immunity before 2024. Now, it's a complicated legal argument, but in a nutshell, this is it. If the administration has been colluding with these companies to silence users they disagree with, which it seems pretty obvious that they are, then there is precedent to show that they are acting as de facto government agents rather than private businesses, which means they are required to obey the First Amendment. And if they can be held legally accountable for every time that they have violated a user's right to free speech, the floodgates of lawsuits will be thrown wide open. It couldn't happen to a more deserving group of defendants. Now, I'm not holding my breath that's going to happen, but I'll certainly be dreaming about it. And finally, New York City voters just got a harsh double whammy lesson in what bait and switch really means. Fed up with Bill de Blasio's socialist mismanagement that has resulted in skyrocketing crime and fleeing residents, they voted in some new Democrats who claim they'd be different. And then, the minute they were in office, they started giving the people de Blasio 2.0. First, new Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg announced that he was basically decriminalizing every crime short of murder. And now, new Mayor Eric Adams announced that he will not oppose a controversial new plan that will allow up to 1 million non-citizens to vote in local elections after just 30 days residency. Ironically, some of the critics are from the left, and they claim it will further dilute the voting power of black residents. While some smaller blue cities let non-citizens vote in municipal elections, San Francisco is the only major city that does, and that's just for school board elections. New York's move would be a major change in eroding election standards. Supporters say it's legal because it only applies to local elections, but it is already facing a lawsuit that claims it violates the New York State Constitution. Even Nancy Pelosi once said that in New York, a glass of water could get elected if it had a D by its name on the ballot. Maybe it's time for New Yorkers to stop voting for Democrat glasses of water and realize that what they're really doing is drinking the Kool-Aid. Well, if you want to stay clear of the proverbial Kool-Aid, I got a suggestion for you. It's real simple. Click the subscribe button below and the notification bell next to it. And if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and a comment and share the video with others, like a lot of others. And be sure to tune in this Friday for another live stream show. And of course, if you want more of news, analysis, and commentary, it's real easy. You can sign up for my twice-a-day newsletter at MikeHuckabee.com. It's completely free. It really, really is. Well, that's going to do it for this edition of The Breakdown. I'm Mike Huckabee.